All right, so I'm going to walk you through my setup. So in terms of setup, there's some setup that I do for my Neo-Vim, which is my preferred code editor for Salesforce development, and then setup in terms of how I use the command line outside of Neo-Vim. So there's a few, we can cover that, the Neo-Vim part first. So I'm here logged into a cloud-based terminal. This is a virtual machine running in Google Cloud. I'm just SSH'd into that. So basically what this means is any computer I go to, as long as I have a SSH client on it, I should be able to log into this machine remotely and pick up where I left off and, not miss any features that I'm used to.
And it's really easy to get any good SSH client tools, right? In any OS nowadays, Windows, Mac, and Linux for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And more than that, even if you are on, say, something like a Chromebook or a very low-end device, you can still get a browser-based SSH client that would allow you to SSH into a machine and then just, pick up where you left off. And so you don't really need a very powerful machine or one that's, has all the bells and whistles and all the programs installed on it already.
Understand. Okay.
Yep. All right, so I am logged into my virtual machine in Google Cloud, as I was saying. So I'm just going to go to one of the projects that I downloaded. So this is the LWC recipes project. For that. So this is my Neo-Vim setup. So this layout that you see is courtesy of a plugin called Vim Vinegar. So I can show you which one I'm talking about here. So this highlighted one, this is the one that gives me this kind of a layout. It really makes navigating through your file system and your files really easy. It basically just improves upon the default Vim navigation. So when you're using a traditional IDE, you are used to seeing your project explorer on the left, and then your project files open in a separate window to the right. But I find this workflow to be better than that. So if, for example, if I wanted to open up, before I go there, let me just do it this way. So if I want to open up a file, I can open the file up, and when I want to go back to the parent directory, I can just hit the dash key and then go back to the parent directory and then keep going up and get to the file that I want. It also offers some other features such as, just if I hit the exclamation key, it automatically puts the name of the command or the name of the file in the command line, and I can execute a shell command on it immediately. So if I want to copy this to, like, let's say another file, I can do that, and now the copy is created, as you can see.
Okay.
I can lead it with this thing.
So the way of traverse through the file systems is somehow integrated with your Neo-Vim tool, right?
Yeah, thanks to the Vim Vinegar plugin. The default navigation is not like this. There's a lot more text in the file explorer window, and the navigation doesn't work this way. But Vim Vinegar just adds those shortcuts and these kind of like handy, single keystroke commands to do certain operations on the file under your cursor and open it up and things like that. So that makes it really easy.
Okay.
So this is one plugin I would definitely recommend. So there's that. And then I have opened this class, and here, as you can see, I have the Apex Lang server integrated, which I can show you. For example, if I type in, let's say start typing in the name of a class, and I hit Control X, Control O, it brings up all of the autocomplete features. So these are all autocomplete suggestions offered by the Apex Lang server, similar to what you get in VS Code. The difference is it is much more memory efficient, and I have experienced very few problems with the crashing and stuff from this.
Okay.
So this, in order to integrate this, I use a plugin called Vim ALE. This plugin,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Dense Analysis ALE, and this is a very it's like it's a big plugin that does a lot of things. So it does autocomplete by integrating with language servers. It does linting. It does formatting. So I use this plugin to do, all kinds of so Apex Lang Server is just one of the things that it does, but also does formatting by integration with Prettier. So if my Prettier setup is right, it should auto format it. Yeah, as you can see, just I have format on save enabled. So when I, make a change, let's say I mess up my formatting, and I just save the file, Prettier fixes that. So I Prettier integrated, and then I have ESLint integrated. So let me open file here, and let me just add a variable that I'm not going to use. So assuming my ESLint setup is done here, it should show an error. I think it's not done, so let me go ahead and install ESLint.
Okay.
Forgot to show another program that I use a lot that makes this process a bit more easier. So now you can see that I had to come out of I had to exit out of Vim to run this command.
Yeah.
Right, and then I lose the context that I was in, which is not great. Right, so I use an application called Tmux, which stands for Terminal Multiplexer. So it lets me, so Tmux is basically used for splitting, multiple terminals, splitting a terminal into multiple terminals. And so it's almost like the integrated terminal in VS Code, right? And it's all controlled through keyboard shortcuts, so I can create as many terminals as I want. So as you can see, there's like 3 terminals now at the bottom here. So if I were in that file that I was showing earlier, I could have just come here and installed the ESLint.
Yeah. So basically have 2 terminal windows opened one by one, right? And you use the other one to open the Vim, use the button one to run all your commands that you need to do in the terminal.
Right. So yeah, if at some point I decide or I find that I need to run something, I can just come in here and do it. And if I make a mistake here, for example, let me try something else. Let me. Yeah. Here, as you can see, I tried to fetch data using await. And it's saying that this is an unexpected keyword here. But if I make this, oops, I were to so it says unexpected keyword await here because this is not an async method.
Yeah.
But if I were to make the method async, this should go away. And now it's complaining about saying that fetch data is not defined. So this is all coming from ESLint.
Okay.
So
That's good.
ESLint is integrated for LWC,
So
development.
in case I want to use the same, I need to understand how that plugin works, right? This
Right.
LA, how it
ALE.
works.
Yeah.
LE, okay.
So it has very good documentation, but I will go through this. So I'm using a plugin manager called vimplug. So it's
Okay.
something you install. It's got a single line script to install it. So once you install it, any plugin you want, you just have to link the GitHub URL of that plugin here, any Vim plugin, and then you call this plug install command. That installs all the plugins for you, and it's easy to update those also. You just have to run plug update, and it will update all the plugins for you. So once all the plugins are installed, you have to configure it. So here, so these are two variables that you need to set to indicate what linters and what fixers you need to use. So linters are applications that give you those error messages and warning messages that you saw. And fixers are applications that will format your code for you. So
Okay. So there are two different functions inside the same plugin.
Correct.
Okay.
And so as you can see, for linting, I have for JavaScript, I'm using ESLint, CSS, I'm using ESLint, HTML, I'm using ESLint. For Apex, I'm using both LSP and PMD, so it'll give me warnings from both applications. And then there's some other ones that I've configured. For as far as fixers go, as you can see, for JavaScript, I'm using Prettier, pretty much Prettier for Apex 2. And then there are some other language, like for JSON, I'm using JQ to format it. And yeah, so you can define multiple fixers as well. So it'll go in the order. If it doesn't find one, it'll use the other, and so on. So
cool. Yeah, this is nice. Just to give a bit of overview to our viewers, is that if you go back to your dot file, that with the plugin was it called the Vim plug manager, right? That
here,
configuration. Yeah. This file, we can see that you have collected all these plugs that you found useful for yourself, right, around your own working flows. So these
correct.
things can serve as like a baseline for people who may want to try the same configurations. They need to go to the GitHub to understand what each of these plugins are doing, what's the features, and do they fit into my own work or not. So then kind of like a handpick some of them and start from there.
Absolutely. Yep. The dot files repo that I have has all of this. It's not built so for direct like immediate consumption, so you can just download it and start using it. You have to like spend some time setting things up. I haven't put together one script that will just download everything and set it up for you. That is something I have in mind. Maybe if I get down to it and I spend some significant amount of time trying to like make it all automated, someone could theoretically come in, just pull the script down and just run the script and have everything set up. But it's not there yet.
Yeah, this is the thing, for Vim users, a big entertainment time is to really play around with these plugins. That's like a huge ecosystem. A lot of great plugins, open sourced, and you can just go there to configure them and use it by yourself.
Correct. Yeah, and it's a huge ecosystem, like you said. It's bigger than Salesforce's ecosystem. So you have a lot more mature plugins that are not as error prone, and of course it runs faster because of its Vim, and it's not an Electron app like VS Code. So those are some of the advantages. But don't take me wrong. Like VS Code has some real cool features. One of the features I really like about VS Code is the Apex replay debugger.
Okay. Yeah.
That is one feature that I kind of miss in Vim sometimes. So when I do find myself needing that, I go back to VS Code to do that. It's especially useful when you're trying to like debug some legacy code, spaghetti code that's written badly. It's hard to figure out what the code is doing. So the Apex replay debugger comes in real handy at that time. Yeah, that is a really nice feature that I like in VS Code, but you can't get that. I haven't been able to do that in Vim.
Mm-hmm.
So I do go to VS Code for that. But pretty much everything else, I think most of the other things I need, I can do it here.
Mm-hmm. In our last episode, when you were doing the podcast with me, you talked about the FZF, the fuzzy search, and I saw that you have the plugin here on the screen.
Yeah, so FZF, as you know, is a command line application. So it allows you to fuzzy search on the command line, but it also has a Vim plugin. So that's what this is. So this Vim plugin brings a lot of the FZF features to the to Vim as well. So for example, here, if I wanted to search for a class or file, I can just type in the name of the file and fuzzy search for it, right? So this is something I use pretty heavily for navigation and such. So that's one of the features. The other feature that I really like that this plugin brings is the ability to search within the file, fuzzy search within the file. So for example, I can just go to the fuzzy search mode and I can type in something and it will bring me, give me all the lines that match it. And I can just pick something and hit the enter key and it takes me straight to that line. So this is better. I love this feature more than the regular control F kind of search that you get in files where you have to exactly type out what you're searching for. And then you can go to that. Fuzzy search gives you a nice way of searching for words in a fuzzy manner. And you can go straight to it. This is especially useful when you're doing debugging or when you're trying to go through debug logs, for instance. So let's say, for example, I'm going to run this test. So this is already pushed to the cloud. I have a scratch org that I've already pushed this to. So let's say I want to run this test now.
Okay.
Right? So what I'm going to do is I have keyboard shortcuts that are bound to creating the log files, to pulling down log files for this org. So with the keyboard shortcut, it takes me to that window. I can see that my logging is turned on. Actually, the window that you see at the bottom is where I have Apex log tail running, so I can see the logs in real time. And the window on the top is where I collect the logs. So after I close this terminal, I can go back to the file and examine my logs. So let me go here and I'm going to run this test now. So, I think I had corrected. Oh, yeah. All right, I'm going to run this test now.
What did you just fix?
I had put in a command in one of my vimRCs to make the is-test case insensitive. So basically what I'm doing here is I have a keyboard shortcut bound to that looks for the previous instance of is-test and then runs this particular test. But I had so in the vimRC that I have here, I had not made it case insensitive, so it was looking for is-test with a capital I.
I see. Yeah.
And so I had to fix that case insensitivity. But you can see that it ran that test. It passed. I can see the outcome. I can see all the lines that are not covered and stuff. But I can.
So the bottom one is the tail information you get from that log file.
This is the tail. This is in a separate tab.
Okay.
So this is the tail, right? So I can look for any debug statements or whatever that I have here. But I can cycle through that. But once I am done, actually, an even better way of navigating is to use the file, right? And here I can use FZF to actually look at all debug statements. So here there are none, but let's say I wanted to look at all the variable assignments. I can quickly just filter through and look for all the variable assignments and just go straight to something. But there's an exception somewhere. I can go straight to that and look at and see what's the exception is.
Mm.
So this is something I use very heavily. So,
Yeah. So because you are pulling down the files to your local, then it becomes basically a text buffer, and the FCF just simply run on all of these text buffers, and use the fuzzy search to get the job done.
that's correct. Yep.
Okay.
I use this quite a lot in my debugging. When I run tests, I turn on debug logs and I look at things to see if something's messed up. So
Okay.
this is
That's one step closer, because when I use VS Code, I don't know, especially when I run tests, I think there could be a way to get the debug information to the VS Code. I just didn't really look into that. I still go to the cloud over the UI to really check that.
yeah. VS Code has some command options that you can say
Yeah,
get me the latest log or get me
yeah,
the latest whatever number of logs and stuff.
yeah, yeah.
Yep. But I think you have to have some extensions installed in VS Code also to do this kind of filtering that I'm doing with FZF.
Okay.
So, that's one of the other handy features of FZF is that lets me do that. Um, then another feature that I really like is I use this to also help me autocomplete object and field names. So for example, if I'm trying to write some SOQL and I want to fetch some fields from the account, I can fuzzy search through it and I can say account number, whatever, um, can get the
Okay.
fields that I need right here. So this allows me to autocomplete field names from that I pulled from the default Salesforce org and fuzzy search through it as I'm writing commands or as I'm referencing fields and things like that.
So you mean you are able to pull the S object information from the org
Correct.
to your local, and you did that already, I
Yeah,
think,
it's
before the recording, right?
correct. Yep, I have a script that pulls the S object information for the S objects that you specify. If you want it for everything, that's also possible. I actually have a GitHub gist where I've already pulled almost all of the standard object fields and object names. And so if I wanted to, use that, the script just gets it from my GitHub gist. And so it doesn't pull from the org. And then for any other custom fields or objects that you have on top of that, you can pull it from the org. But
Oh, okay.
for most of the cases, I just pull the field and object information for a limited number of standard objects and custom objects from the default org.
Just to save the time, right?
Yeah, because you're not really using the other stuff for most of the cases.
Yeah.
So this
Okay.
is something FZF helps me with. It also helps me similarly in. Let me open an HTML file and see. So for here, for example, this is not using any SLDS classes, but if I wanted to use any SLDS classes, I can use FZF to pull this SLDS classes as well. So I have all the SLDS classes pulled and stored in my home directory. So I can fuzzy search through that and pick up any SLDS classes I want. This
Are
allows.
these SLDS names pulled into a local file, or are there different files?
These are SLDS names pulled into a local file.
Okay. This is separate from this S object file, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So this allows me to fuzzy search through SLDS classes and use those without having to go to the Lightning Design System website every single time. So this is a time saver. So FZF helps me here as well.
Okay.
Yep.
This, and you showed me like a SQL query. Are you able to run a SQL from the file that you're writing the Apex code?
I am not sure I follow your question. So
yeah, I mean, you open the Apex file, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you put a SQL query here. If I just want to quickly test what's the result of this select query, am I able to somehow like select this query and run it to see the result from here?
No, I don't have that enabled.
Mm.
I can just, if I can probably create a keyboard shortcut for that, but if I wanted to run something, this is probably better. I can just copy and paste it here and just run it, and it should give me the results of Apex. So complaining about the with security enforced. I'm gonna get rid of that. And yep,
Okay.
can get the results here. Yeah, I haven't really bound a keyboard shortcut for that, because in Apex, sometimes you can have a lot of times you will have variables that you're referencing, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so you can just independently run that.
Yeah.
So
Understand. Yeah.
yeah.
I'm asking because I don't have this shortcut. I just wondering how you are doing that.
Sure. Oh, yeah. I mean, I have so another thing I use heavily. Let me just go back to my vimrc. So another plugin I use is this Vim snippets and alt snips. So this helps me build snippets for a lot of the commands that or a lot of the code snippets that I write frequently. So in VS Code, you have code snippets as well, right? So similarly in here also you have the ability to define code snippets. So for example, I have deb set to expand to system.debug. Whenever I want to do that, I can do that. It has CLS bound to creating the class definition for me. So in LWC, I can do yeah, I can import stuff here. So for example, yeah. So this is a quick snippet for importing third-party scripts and stuff from static resources. So that saves me some time.
Yeah.
Another one that I use pretty often is this, where I, you always have to set the is exposed to true and then specify targets. So I have a snippet bound for that, which lets me quickly do this.
Yeah. I think for all different IDEs or different tools you're using for the coding, definitely the snippets are important to save a lot of time for repetitive tasks.
Yep, absolutely. It definitely speeds up your coding a lot. For HTML, I have Lightning Data Table. It's got too many options and stuff, right? So I have table bound to that, so it brings up all the commonly used options here for me, so it makes it easier. I have a few others bound as well for some other base components that are, I think I have one for card. So yeah, Lightning card.
So if you have the Apex here on the screen, how do you send this Apex to the cloud? You have a hotkey?
Sure. Yep, as with everything else, I have hotkeys for this too. So this is a Scratch org, right? So I have a hotkey bound to push any changes that I've made. So I can just hit, in my dot file, you'll see it's bound to square bracket A, and so that will push this to the cloud, update the source tracking. As you can see here, everything is pushed. And it's good. If I'm using a non-source tracked org, like a full copy sandbox or something, and I wanted to deploy this, I can use a different command to deploy just a single file, just this file that I'm in. So I have it bound to square bracket dd. I'll show you that in vimrc here. So square bracket d and square bracket dd. These are two commands I use, and I think one allows you to specify the org where you want to deploy this to. So if I just did square bracket d, so for example, let's say I don't want to deploy to my default org. I want to deploy it to some other org, right? So it brings up the command at the bottom, and it waits for me to type in the username of the org I want to deploy this to.
Yeah. Okay.
So I can just, specify the name, and it'll try to deploy it. Obviously, there's no users with this username, so it fails. But that's how I can deploy it to sandboxes and dev orgs and scratch orgs and stuff real quickly.
I see. I see. Yeah, this is tidy. So you really have everything under your own control.
I do. I can also run. Let's see if there is. Here, no, they don't have a scripts folder. Let me create a scripts folder, and let me add an Apex folder. And let's say I wanted to create Apex script, and let me just do a system.debug. So if I wanted to run this as an execute anonymous, I have a key binding for that. So it just runs it quickly, and I can quickly look at the debug and see what's going on.
Oh, so you can even do this. Send it to anonymous console. Okay.
Yep. Execute anonymous, bring back the output, and examine it. So this is also something I use quite heavily.
Is that also coming from the sfdx command?
Yep. So
Okay.
you can see on line number 129 here,
Yeah.
there's two flavors again. If I wanted to execute in my default org, I use this key binding. If I wanted to execute it in an org, some other org, I do this, and it prompts me for the username.
Okay.
And that way I can execute in whichever org I want. These are the key bindings for pulling up the logs in a separate tab, as I was showing you earlier. So this is handy as well.
How do you run tests? You have showed me how to run one test. What if I want to run all the tests in one file, or even all the tests in the entire org?
Sure. So if I wanted to run all the tests in one file, I just have this binding. So let me just show you. So again, two versions of the same command, right? Forward square bracket T and square bracket TT. Square bracket T runs all the tests. Square bracket TT just runs one test. So if I want to run all this test here, let's see. Weird. So now it will run all the tests in the class. We can wait for it. But if I wanted to run all the tests in the org, I just do this. I don't have a keyboard key binding for this. I mean, it'll be trivial to create a key binding for that, but I just don't have that. Not sure why this did not run, but let me try running it again. Okay, it failed something, but yeah.
The ones on the button, that's a bash console, right?
Which one are you talking about? This one? This console?
Yeah, because you're jumping between multiple windows and trying to
Sorry.
understand. So this one, yeah, the one on the screen at the button, that's also a bash terminal. Is it? That's the Vim integrated window,
Correct.
or is it?
Right, it's
Okay.
the Vim integrated terminal. So in Vim, you can Neo-Vim. I want to be clear. In Neo-Vim, you can bring up an integrated terminal using the command term. At the bottom, you'll see that.
Okay.
So this brings up a terminal.
Okay.
So
Okay.
when you do this, it basically takes up your window. So you lose the file that you are working on. So I have a keyboard shortcut bound where it splits the window first and then opens up term in the lower half and then executes the command that you want and stuff.
Okay. Multiple steps in one.
Right.
One hotkeys. Okay.
Correct.
And you jump into another window, right? A different window.
Yeah,
that
this is.
has.
Sorry, this is the Tmux terminal multiplexer window I was telling you about earlier. So I can come down here and run my commands outside of Vim, any commands that I want to run outside of Vim directly on the command line.
Is there any difference?
Yeah, I mean, in Vim terminal, first of all, you have to split the window. and you have to like run commands separately, that after you run the command, it's not as easy to interact with. Like it's good for running like single commands or like a handful of commands that you want to run, but it's not as user friendly as the actual shell in terms of like interacting with it.
Yeah.
And plus, you may or not in all the key bindings that I have on in the shell may not be available in the Vim terminal, because it's kind of a limited terminal.
I understand. Yeah, I've seen that as well in the past. I think for Visual Studio Code as well, it has this integrated terminal, but it's not all featured comparing
Right.
to the standalone one.
Yeah, some of the keyboard shortcuts in the terminal can be hijacked by VS Code then,
Yeah,
and VS Code will try to do its own thing with that. So, it kind of messes
exactly.
you up.
Yeah. Okay. Now clear. Thanks.
Sure. So, I forget what we were on, but
I
let
think
me.
we were running tests in one file, right?
Yeah. So, as I was telling you that for, square bracket T helps you run all the tests in one file. We just saw that. And, you can get the results in the bottom window and check out what's going on. And similarly, I have commands for pulling as well, just like pushing. If I wanted to pull from the org, I can do Control U, and it'll pull any changes that I have in the org. So as you can see, it's retrieving the metadata and trying to pull.
Okay. I see, I see. Basically, we need to build the muscle memories for all these hotkeys, right, along your working time.
Right. So that's the thing about Vim is, you as a Vim user, you probably know this yourself. It takes, when you're starting to use Vim initially, it takes a while to build up the muscle memory. And you constantly try to reach for the mouse, and you find yourself mistyping or forgetting shortcuts and things like that. But as you get better at remembering the basic shortcuts and remembering or getting the muscle memory for some of the basic commands, it becomes easier for you to develop muscle memory for new shortcuts or new key bindings that you may add. So, the key binding for this is something I only added after our last conversation when you asked me, hey, do you have something to like pull the schema in the Apex file as you're typing? So, I just added it in after that. I was like, oh yeah, I could just pull from the schema file I
Okay.
already have, and then, why not use it here? So, so yeah, it becomes easier once you
Yeah.
get past the initial hump.
And also definitely for learning Vim, there's a learning curve. Just the standard law Vim, not to mention all these plugins or this extra hotkeys.
Right, right. Yeah, there, it's not for everybody. I mean, you have to like the command line, and you have to, already enjoy like it working without using the mouse
Yeah.
for you to enjoy picking up Vim. Otherwise, it might be too much of a struggle for you.
Yeah.
But if you have the interest, there is a path forward.
Definitely. Thanks a lot. How about if we jump back to the shell?
Yeah. Do you want me to cover the Git plugin I use? I think that might
Sure,
be
sure. Of course, we
interesting.
can do that as well.
Yeah, so this is a plugin that I really like. It's called Fugitive, and it allows me. It's basically a Git client integrated with Vim. So pressing like :G will bring up the current status of my, basically the Git status. So as you can see, I'm on the main branch. I have a bunch of untracked files. I have a bunch of unstaged files here, right? And I can just hit the equals key on any of the files to see the changes that I made right here. So as you can see, I added this, this change here. And I can stage it by hitting the A key or the dash key, hyphen key. So it automatically puts it in staging. And if I wanted to remove the changes that I made, I can hit capital X and it will remove those changes. And once I stage something, I can hit CC. As you can see, it's doing the Husky scripts for the pre-commit scripts in the bottom window,
Okay.
and then brings up the commit editor where I can type in my commit message and just commit it. So now it's committed in Git, and I can push it by using gpush if I have a branch that I'm tracking. But since this is LWC recipes branch, it won't let me push. So this is a client I really like. This is just one of the things it can do. It is really useful when combined with FCF for navigating through my Git logs. So for example, I am bringing up the Git logs here, right, by typing the glog command. And now I can use the FZF Win plugin to search through this. So let's see if I committed anything at all here. So I don't have any contributions to LWC recipes. If I wanted to see, let's see how many, like a commit that Alba Rivas had, for instance, I can just look at this and see all of her commits, for instance. I can jump to a commit like this. This is a commit. I can hit Shift O or capital O to look at what was done in the commit specifically. So these are the changes that were made in the commit. I can close it out. There are also a bunch of other things that I can do. I can check out this commit with a particular keystroke. I can revert this commit, and so this makes it really easy for me to like navigate through my Git history and manipulate it, and when combining the power of Fugitive and FZF. So I really love this Git workflow.
Okay. So again, this plugin pulls the commit history into one single file.
Correct.
And then allows whatever search plugin you use to traverse through all the histories.
That's correct. Yep. It also allows also to interact with commit hashes. So when your cursor is on a commit hash, you can do it, automatically recognizes that, and it will give you keyboard shortcuts to do things like checking out that commit hash or reverting that commit, or opening the commit and seeing all the files that were changed in there. So that's really handy as well.
Can you show that?
Right. So for example, I'm on this commit, right? I want to see what was changed here. So I can hit Shift O to open up that commit temporarily in a separate buffer. So as you can see, these were the changes made.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I also have like keyboard shortcuts bound for reverting commits. Let me see. I don't remember that off the top of my head. CR space public command with git revert. Yeah, revert the commit. CRC, revert the commit under the cursor. So CRC will revert the commit that I have under the cursor. So if I wanted to revert this commit, like close this, I can do CRC. Because I have some changes to package log.json. As you can see, it's tried to commit it, but it's saying that revert failed.
Okay.
But that's basically what it would do. So
I see.
This is another thing I use, by the way. I use folding a lot, so I prefer to have my files folded all the time, and whichever one method I want to look at, I can just open it.
Okay.
So this is, courtesy of a Vim plugin. I mean, Vim also does default folding by default, but recently Vim has got this plugin called Tree Sitter, which is really good for syntax highlighting and folding and things like that. Much better than native Vim, and it's getting a lot of community interest as well.
Okay.
So I switched to that recently. So that's how I'm getting this kind of richer syntax highlighting. By default, Vim's syntax highlighting is not great, but with Tree Sitter, it's a lot better.
I thought the syntax highlighting comes from the Apex language server. No?
No, Apex Lang server does linting and autocomplete. I do not believe it does syntax highlighting. Syntax highlighting comes from, I believe, VS Code's own syntax definition
Oh,
files, or maybe the Salesforce extensions syntax
mm,
definition files for VS Code. I'm not sure which of those does that.
okay. So
Yeah.
this one already works good out of box for the Apex syntax highlighting, or do you need to configure it?
Tree sitter.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's, I mean, I'm basically borrowing Java syntax highlighting because Apex is mostly similar to Java.
Ah, okay, okay. I got it.
Yeah, since I don't think anyone has created a tree sitter file for um, Apex specifically,
So
but
sometimes you still see a bit mismatched.
a little bit. I have with syntax highlighting. Honestly, I haven't really noticed a difference.
Okay.
Apex is basically just Java. Most for the Java is
Mm,
basically a superset of Apex, right? It's
mm,
got a lot more features, but if you take all of Apex's language constructs, it's Java, right?
mm-hmm,
There's except for
mm-hmm.
sockle and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I use these are like a couple of lines that tells tree sitter to use Java for Apex syntax highlighting.
Okay. That's cool.
Yep.
Cool, Suraj. Anything else?
No, I think the Vim from a Vim perspective, we are covered. We can move on to the
Mm.
CLI if you would
Okay.
like to see
Yeah.
that.
Let's do that. Let's have a look at the CLI.
Right. So when it comes to CLI, the biggest thing here that I use is FZF for helping me navigate or auto fuzzy search through the CLI commands. So I have a key
Mm,
binding
mm.
that lets me search through all of FZF's commands, and not just search through the commands, but also like show me a description, the flags and stuff to the right, as you can see. And
Oh, okay. You get this description.
right,
Okay.
so that's one of the cool features of FZF is that it allows you to configure not just fuzzy search, but also anything else that you want to do with that, the command or whatever under the cursor to the right. So for example, if you're fuzzy searching through files, it will show you a preview of the file as you click on each file, right, in Vim.
Mm-hmm.
So similarly here, as I fuzzy search through the commands, it will show me a description of the command. And if I wanted to use a command, for instance, I can start typing in the command. I can make typos, and it'll pull in the command.
Mm.
And after I type the command in, I can hit the same key again. It will bring me the relevant flags for the command.
Ah, this one I don't have. Did you configure it by yourself or?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I have an FCF script that it's on my GitHub as well.
Okay.
Um, so this allows me to like cycle through all the flags available with the command. I can just pull it down and type in the commands and stuff here.
Mm.
But I also use or abuse FZF for other things as well. For example, if I wanted to search through the list of my orgs that I have authenticated into, I have a FZF shortcut bound to that, so I can go through and pull up the org names that I want. Right now in this
Okay.
cloud.
Okay. You don't really want to type anything by yourself. You always try to fetch as much as possible.
Right, fuzzy search is reigns supreme. There's nothing that can beat it. So I don't want to keep typing
Okay.
the same thing over and over. So um,
Okay, okay. I got it. The difference between you and me is that I'm still using the out-of-box FCF. I don't have basically any configuration. For example, now if I want to really see what's the scratch org names, then I really need to start a new command line to do the
mhm.
type a list and then get this sfdx command list to see what's the org names and then jump back here to type.
Right. Yeah, this is
Mm.
such a time saver. Like I don't ever type the name of my orgs anymore. Just use
Mm.
this when I'm for another thing I use for when I'm pulling. Um, let's say I'm pulling some metadata from the org, right? And I'm using the -m switch, and I'm not sure if that metadata is available for me to pull down. I
Mm.
have an FZF keyboard shortcut bound to that. So if I want to pull, let's say, workflow, This is all of the metadata that can be pulled from the org that is supported by source control, right? Permission sets, let's see. So it brings up the metadata name, and then I can type in the name of the metadata that I want to pull down. So this again saves me a lot of time. A lot of times you're not sure what is the name of the metadata that, for example, if I wanted to pull down path settings, what is the name of the path setting metadata? It's this, right? Path assistant or whatever. I can just pull it down like this way and not make any typos, and it saves me a lot of time.
This is really cool. How did you configure it? It's like a dot files.
Right. If you open my bash aliases file, there is an alias I have. So what this does is it goes and fetches the MDAPI coverage report from, I don't know if you've ever seen this. There's an MDAPI coverage report that Salesforce publishes. You may not be able to see it because I'm only sharing the terminal window. I just clicked on it.
I remember. Okay. It even has a, okay, let me see. Yeah, I remember that was like how much metadata is covered by the command line, something like that, right?
Correct. So it's, I just pulled that. It's basically a JSON that it's formatting into a table. So I just pull the JSON into a local file and I store it here. So anytime there is a new Salesforce release, I just update the API version here.
Okay.
And it pulls it into this file here, which is like a huge JSON file. And I have
you have a parser.
Yeah, I use JQ to parse it, parse through it. I think they're at the end of our time there. Yeah. So this is a function that parses the metadata API report and binds it to the keyboard shortcut that I use, and that way I can just fuzzy search through it.
Okay. This is, well, definitely the advanced level.
Yeah, this is this file that contains all of the sfdx scripts as well for parsing through sfdx, and I have a bunch of other things too, like, you know, if I wanted to install a package, for instance, I can type in this command and say I want to look for JDK. It brings up all the JDK packages available in the repository, the Ubuntu repository, and I can select one to install. I totally abuse FZF.
That's nice. That's nice.
Yeah, it saves me a lot of time. I use it for queries as well. So if I want to write a so-called query, and I can use a similar. Oh wait, it's not. I'm not in the wrong. Contact. So I use fuzzy search for typing my so-called queries as well.
So it's the same file you demonstrated in the Vim window, right? So you pull the object names from there. Okay.
Correct. Yep. I guess I don't have permissions to those fields in this org. But yeah, it's this file script that's again on my .files repo. So it basically just goes through and fetches all the custom object and custom field definitions, stores it in this file called schema.txt. And this has all the object names and field names in there. And we just fuzzy search through it and pull down, or just pull the field name.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, I think that's most of my setup. I'm sure I might be missing something, but I can't.
Yeah, no problem, Suraj. Yeah, definitely you have shared a lot. A huge amount of information to take in for everybody. I think the idea here is not really to copy everything that you have, because this is definitely multiple years of muscle memory and tinkering, triggering all this stuff to get it fits best to your own workflow. it might not be for everybody as well. So I think the idea here is that to see how powerful these things can get, and then just pick up something for your own best, and then start from simple, and then build your own stuff.
For
This
sure,
is
for
the
sure.
idea. Yeah.
For sure. And I think oh yeah, I just remembered there's something else I wanted to show you. I don't know. Oh yeah. So I have this, there's a command called ctags that you can download on any Linux machine. And it allows you to generate tags for all the classes in your org. And so that allows me to jump to definition. So, and things like that. So here, if I wanted to go to the custom wrapper class from that previous class, I can just hit control square bracket and it takes me to that class. I can switch back. So this is a quick way for me to jump to certain class definitions and things. It's not perfect because if there are multiple classes or methods with the same name, it sometimes messes it up. So it's not perfect, but it works most of the time for me to like jump to definitions and things like that.
Comparing to how it works out of the box in Visual Studio Code with the Salesforce plugins, have you tried that one?
I have not really tried it that much. I don't know how good it is or whether it works 100% of the time.
No. I think maybe 70%. Some of them are still missing. Yeah. I don't know why. I didn't really look into. I just control click. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, then I'll do manually.
Right. I think I don't know. I would give it more than 70% for C tags, but you know, I guess it depends on your code base too. So
yeah, indeed. All right, Suraj, excellent. Thanks a lot for sharing this. I think definitely it will help a lot of people.
Sure, no problem. Anytime.
Yeah. Okay. See you next time then, Suraj. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you, G. Bye.